Hi, everyone. Today, we're going to be talking about supporting literacy using AAC and following the concepts outlined, some of the concepts outlined in Comprehensive Literacy for All. My name is Sabrina Lu Ekanayake. I have a master's in education, and I'm also a certified structured literacy dyslexia specialist. So, welcome everyone to this presentation on implementing comprehensive literacy for all with AAC. Today, we will explore ways that AAC can help achieve literacy goals and empower all learners. Literacy is the key to access and creates confident communicators. It encompasses not only reading and writing, but also critical thinking, comprehension, and social connection. AAC is a powerful tool that can support learners in developing the foundational skills of literacy and thereby reach their full potential. This is EJ. He's my 18-year-old AAC user, and the reason I went back to school to get a master's in educational technology, become a literacy specialist, and am now pursuing my doctorate. So, whether you are a parent, a professional, or both, we can and must provide literacy instruction for all learners. Today, we'll learn ways that AAC, augmentative alternative communication, can help our learners achieve improved literacy and social outcomes. So, here's the book, or the guidebook, as I like to call it, that came out in 2020 and really gave us all a roadmap. So before we were doing a lot of different things and really trying our best. And so now that we have this, I really believe this quote comes to play. We can't sort of look backwards and say, what if I'd known this years ago or that sort of thing? We have to kind of start from now. So we do the best. Here's the quote: do the best you can until you know better. Then, when you know better, do better. And that's a Maya Angelou quote. And so I hope that this presentation will help you to see that this is a great roadmap. So many complex communicators are simply not given enough exposure to print to develop emergent literacy skills. So this is where comprehensive literacy for all comes in. Comprehensive literacy refers to the ability to read, write, express, listen, and think critically in a variety of contexts. It is important because it enables individuals to participate fully in society, access information, and make informed decisions. In fact, studies show that individuals with high levels of literacy have better health outcomes, higher earning potential, and greater civic engagement. However, many learners face barriers to developing comprehensive literacy skills, such as language and communication difficulties, learning disabilities, and lack of access to the literacy instruction. This is where comprehensive literacy for all and effective AAC implementation can make a difference by providing personalized and engaging support for all learners. So, why AAC, you might ask? AAC is a language system designed to support communication and literacy development for individuals with complex communication needs. A good and robust AAC system uses a unique and consistent motor planning approach that helps learners associate specific movements with words and phrases, making it easier for them to express themselves. And this is because the motor planning heading toward the articulators, those connections aren't quite strong enough to communicate effectively. So we need to augment. AAC also includes features such as customizable vocabulary sets, visual support, and data tracking tools. These features can enhance literacy skills by providing learners with access to relevant and engaging content, supporting comprehension and expression, and monitoring progress over time. The simple answer is why AAC? Because that is an accessible voice. So, when we're deciding whether a learner is emergent or conventional in their literacy journey, we're going to ask these four ideas. We're going to look at these four ideas. Do they know most of the letters most of the time? And that is intentionally vague because we're not going to say they have to know 20 out of 26. We're just, do they know most of them most of the time? Can they identify them? Do they know the sounds that go with those letters? Things like that. As long as they have some of that recognition, you can start going on to some other things. But it's important to always be circling back. Do they engage actively during shared reading? This is really key, and they need to engage actively without extrinsic motivation. So that there's recent studies coming out of where this book came out of, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, that really show that when we are doing this for extrinsic rewards, sort of a goldfish, an M&M, a token, when you can't learn to read that way, or it's definitely not as effective, and you won't become someone who develops a love for learning and a love for reading if everything has been motivated extrinsically. And it kind of goes against some of the models that we'll see in special ed when we're not using this first, then, if then, here's a treat kind of thing. We want them to want to learn. That needs to be the motivation. So going into a therapy session and someone saying, "Oh, what is he working for today?" Well, he is working to improve his speaking, to improve his spelling, to improve his reading, to improve, right? So he's got to be intrinsically motivated to really make this work. The third thing, have a means of communication and interaction. So that's where AAC comes in. Or if you have an individual who signs, that is their means, that is a full language, right? So they might have a multiple, like a Mary Poppins bag of communication and interaction. But for sure, we need something where they can produce letters so that we can work on literacy as well. The fourth thing, understand that writing involves letters and words. So when we can see that letters come together and make these words, that these aren't just the letters that dance around in the alphabet videos, that is really something that makes a big difference. So they know that letters coming together make words. So if you have a strong yes to all four of these, then you're going to go to conventional literacy strategies, which are more the ones that are going to come in your big box curriculums and things like that, and make adaptations from there. And there's a lot more in the book about using conventional literacy materials and strategies. So, for the most part, you cannot err on the side of too much of the emergent program, because that still strengthens literacy across the board. So if you're not sure on any of these questions, it is much safer to do emergent literacy. So we're going to be talking about that mostly, emergent. So you can see here that we want to have shared reading, writing with others, writing by me, writing from others, self-selected reading, working with letters and sounds. This is emergent readers and writers, literacy and language. This graphic comes from Jane Farrell's site, comprehensiveliteracy.com. She's out of Australia. She has wonderful training materials on her website. And she came here and heard David Erickson, I'm sorry, Karen Erickson and David Copenhaver present on conventional literacy. So that's what I think, that's the moment she sort of drank the Kool Aid, so to speak. So, conventional readers and writers. So here we're looking at really focusing on reading comprehension, anchor, read, apply, independent writing, self-selected reading, and working with words. So that's sort of going on with that word work. So our focus areas for today for our emergent learners are shared reading, for the broad categories of shared reading, shared writing, independent reading, and word work. And we have found that it's better to do a little bit of each of these. And even if you don't feel super confident in all of them, it's better to try to do a little bit in all of these areas than to become the best at shared reading for 6 months and not have touched on the other things. So it's better to have all of this working together side by side. So, shared reading. We want to provide engaging material. So, whether that's an article on interesting animal facts, or that is a Harry Potter book, or that's a great picture book that will be engaging. So, looking at their age, that's going to really help with choosing engaging material. Focus on interaction, building that rapport. Something nobody wants to communicate to someone who they feel pressure from, who also has brought up a bunch of boring information. None of us want to communicate with that person. Model without expectation. And that means you're on an AAC device, ideally the same system. I like to be on a second device so they don't feel like I'm grabbing their device or I'm using their voice. I have a second system with the same vocabulary, and then invite a response. And a lot of times that is just kind of a pause, an expected pause, a little lean in that you would do if you were talking to someone and you were kind of thinking, would you like to put something here? But also be prepared for total silence as you count slowly to 10 or 15. It is hard for us as jabberers to leave those spaces, but those spaces are when the magic happens because we need to allow additional processing time. So, one of the concepts for shared reading to keep in mind is putting the crowd in the car. So, car is comment, ask, respond. And don't let ask become very like quizzy. We don't want that. It's really should be more like comment, ask slash invite and respond. And so whatever they say, we're gonna honor that and build upon it and keep moving through. Crowd just adds that extra element for you. Completion, you might even say something like, oh, and then they went to the leaving something blank or something recall. Oh, remember when we went and saw that fox, but it had much smaller ears? I wonder why. Something totally open ended. You never know when you're going to say, I wonder how he feels about that. And they come out with scared or something, just something very open ended. WH questions. Where do you think they're going? What do you think's going to happen on the next page? Those kinds of things. Distancing. So distancing could be, putting something farther away, but just having it relate back. Okay, so like remember that time we were in the Sahara Desert? I know that wouldn't probably happen. Remember that time we were really cold, just like the wood frog? All right. So, one idea and a great resource, it is a free resource on the PRC Saltillo website, is the 2025 Literacy Planner. This actually has been going on for about 5 years. So, there are plenty of suggestions of picture books and 1 year where they did do chapter books that you can use for shared reading, including ideas with core words and different things that can come in really, really handy. And you could even have like a little book club. Find some AAC peers, whether they're in if you're in the classroom situation or in a social situation. And here's just some examples from the AAC 2025 Literacy Planner. These might be some other years, but they just show picture books and they all have core words, and we're going to be talking about we'll probably zip back to here when we're talking about predictable charts, but here's the one where it was chapter books: Anne of Green Gables, The One and Only Ivan, Wrinkle in Time, etc. Okay, so I do have video here of EJ. I'm just going to show a little bit here because I don't want this video to be too epically long. But these are also on our web. These are on our. Did I share the volume? So, yes, shared reading, commenting, leaving space, honoring the communication, building upon it, all that good stuff. Shared writing. Okay, so predictable chart writing using our core words from whatever we're reading about. And taking turns to model where to find possible fill ins. And it's a great way to learn the vocabulary as well. And you have that pride of authorship. So, shared writing, you can write a chart like on paper, or you can make slides if you're doing PowerPoint or Google Slides and have it based on the topic that you read about. So we're just imagining we read about interesting animals. So we might have the sentence be, the blank is blank. And it could be, the first one could be, the frog is cold, right? The fox is small. So it could be things like that where you're just looking for words to fill in. And if you're just starting off, just have one word as the fill in. So it could all be the frog. The frog is blank, something like that. So you're going to get lots of different answers. Even if it's just you and the student, you can just go back and forth. My turn, your turn, my turn, your turn. So you're modeling by taking turns and or navigating to a category. So that's one of the things, especially when you're just starting out and they're not coming up with a lot of those answers. You could have it be where you leave. It could be the blank is fun, and you could say the frog is fun, and then you could go to where frogs are and show that, oh, you can pick any animal or you can pick anything. Then you can even publish it, and you can have it be part of their independent reading library that they get a chance to choose from, or you can just share it with family and say, look at the book we did today, and we want to honor all efforts and create confident readers. So here's a little quick example of doing predictable chart. And again, this is on our YouTube page, but just in case I don't have the volume right, I hope this. But EJ, we also worked on two-handed typing, so he does a lot of this stuff. But his mom is a assistive technology specialist, so he spends a lot of time working with this stuff. He also can search in Google Slides and find the pictures he wants. So you can do a lot of these things and then just let them choose the picture and just sort of scaffold the skills. And then if you notice, he paused over cars. He was hovering, and that's actually a thing that a lot of AAC users do is they are waiting for some kind of signal or something because they're afraid of getting things wrong, even when it's just a choice, right? So that happens when we put too much demand on AAC and we make it into a chore, and so we get performance anxiety, which is really natural and it's really easy to become prompt dependent. So you have to resist those moments and just let that time happen so that he can process the fact that, okay, I think this is an okay choice, and he can make that choice. And then those hesitations hopefully become less. It is tough because we use AAC for school, and then you do kind of need that right or wrong answer sometimes. So it can be tough, but if you can take the pressure off, That really makes a big difference. So, if you've got your homepage from your AAC, you can look at it and say, what words here that are on the homepage, so these are core words, can I use and just have one blank? So the easiest one is always, I like blank. I want blank. Any of those kinds of things. She has, and you could be talking about a picture, or she is, and something like that. So you can come up with descriptive words. So those are sort of those first predictable charts. So I always call this level one. I like or something pronoun verb thing. And then level two would be look at the blank blank, look at the adjective thing. And you can model, look at the slimy frog, or look at the cute fox, or whatever it is. And then level 3A is tell that blank blank to blank and blank. So it could be tell that tall bird to sit and sing. So you can obviously fill in whichever ones you want to fill in and then leave out whatever ones you want to leave out and eventually work up to where they're building much more of the sentence um, with these predictable chart forms. And so this was one, this could be tell that dancing frog to sit and eat. Don't let that blank drive the blank. So it could be don't let that pigeon, you know, jump on the bed or something like that. So lots of different ideas for predictable charts. Any sentence you can think of, you just keep the most core words and switch out some of the other ones. So that's all shared writing. Independent writing. This can be really tricky, but it can also be sort of the easiest thing in some ways. You just need to present someone, give them access to the alphabet in some way, shape, or form, and then give them a topic or some context to express themselves. And so it could be a daily text to a favorite relative, it could be in an email. You could compose it in AAC, and then most AAC, if it's on an iPad, you just hold down the speech bar and you can select share. And if you're attached to the internet in any way, you can do like an iMessage or something like that. So you can share swiftly straight from there. But then you should also have them access the alphabet. So even if they composed it in AAC, it's actually for the sake of the skill for independent writing. We want them to see that anything they can say with AAC, they can also put together with letters and communicate it that way too, and that print has meaning, and you gain the confidence of a writer. You could even just rewrite the sentence that you worked on in the predictable chart. The main thing is we don't want this to be a copying moment. We want this to be a thinking about the letters that make up that word, whether it's by the sounds or it's a sight word so they've memorized it, whatever that reason. And if you do a correspondence journal, it's kind of neat because if they wrote something and misspelled something, you could use that word in your response naturally without just saying, oh, you spelled that wrong. That kind of stuff we want to stay away from. But you could just kind of casually spell it correctly in your comment. So that would be independent writing. So this is such an important thing. And back to Jane Farrell, she created Writing with All Tools. And I think she's actually done an update to this. So I probably need to update this. But this amazing tool, or her amazing tools that she's developed, it was created by Jane Farrell. It takes our learners from scribbling to writing paragraphs. As we model the next level in LAMP or any AAC, it empowers our learners to hear themselves say it first. Composing more connected sentences and communicative thought is achieved by following the idea of you think it, then we say it, then you learn to read it, and then you learn to write it. It's usually a path that happens. So AAC provides our learners a way to say it. So we're going to just jump in and say they're thinking. There's thought going on. If that thought is forming words, we want them to be able to get those words, have a way to access those words so that we can hear them when they are not able to articulate those words. So that's what AAC is for. Now we're working on the can you read it? If you see those words, can you then read it and understand it? And then without looking at it. If you just had a keyboard or a pencil, if you can write, those kinds of things, that you can write it. So those are the steps we're going on. This is a great little piece that is actually an available resource in the Comprehensive Literacy for All Facebook group. It's called Comprehensive Literacy for All Book Study. And there's tons of great resources in here. And I'm not sure if there's a current cycle going on, but it basically, um, Alyssa Warren has been so generous to take people through this book. And this here is the writing scale. This also appears on Jane Farrell's site, but this was such a nice illustration of it. But you go from drawing or scribbling, which if you're not able to do those things, might be scanning, might be using a switch, might be using AAC and typing, all whatever ways you can access letters. Letter strings, just a bunch of letters together, not grouped or anything. Then they start to be grouped. So the idea of I've been looking at a lot of words and there's usually spaces, that kind of comes into play. One intelligible word, then two to three intelligible words start to show up. Then three or more different intelligible words in a list. And then partial sentences of more than three words. So little phrases will start to show up. One or two complete sentences. So now we've got a subject and a verb. We've got both things happening. And then we start to get three or more unrelated sentences. They don't have to be coherent or cohesive. And then we start to get three or more related sentences. And then three or more related sentences that cannot be reordered. So they're sort of like they follow something, there's something happening. So we get that idea of building a paragraph. Two or more related paragraphs of at least two sentences each. So now we've got two ideas going, but related to each other. And then we get more related paragraphs of at least two sentences. And that's once we get to that point, you're really basically able to make that leap into I could write an introduction, a body, and a conclusion paragraph. You're getting into those ideas. But if nothing else, you can definitely compose a little email or a text and that sort of thing. So that's the entire writing continuum. And one thing to think about in your predictable charts is to model the next level up. If they're at phrases, you definitely want to be modeling sentences. Okay, so model the next level of the writing continuum on AAC. We can improve literacy skills with any AAC system as long as we include a way to access letters. So, what makes it easier on a non scrolling AAC that has good conjugation? Well, motor planning. That will help get the idea of where to go for sentence structure. For example, I need a thing, I need an action, something I do with my hands. So, I've got core words like do or somewhere I might go. Check for a system that is strong with conjugation. So there are a lot of them that are just like can't conjugate the verbs or it's very difficult. You have to have like a press and release to get to the conjugation. I don't think those are good choices. That's my opinion. Use predictable chart writing to model building sentences. Before we write sentences, we say them, we hear them. Working on predictable charts with lots of repetition with variety is a way to model more sentence elements. We don't always think in grammatically perfect sentences, so honor that, help shape that, model a little bit more grammatically correct. Ask why if you aren't doing any section of comprehensive literacy for all daily. Why? What's stopping you? So examine that and then you can always reach out. Example. So EJ and I were doing a predictable chart with the blank is blanking, and the next morning we got two full sentences on AAC, which is actually kind of rare. I usually get a lot of single words because you get a lot of meaning that way. But he's like, we're doing sentences. I'll just do some sentences. So, independent reading, this can be a weirdly challenging portion of this program because a lot of our learners don't want to sit still for independent reading. For our idea of independent reading is like, hey, I'm going to sit down with this good book, right? So, maybe it's time in a swing or something else that's motivating. And then, because how relaxing is that? Go in a hammock with a good book and sit there. So the idea is a book of their choice. Ideally, you have some options that relate to the topic you were talking about, but if not, okay. Maybe they're previously written predictable chart books that have been printed out. Whatever it is, maybe they're reading purely electronically if they can do that on a screen. Although screens are impulsive, so you have to watch out for that too. But the benefits of self selected reading are that it builds confidence, expands vocabulary, builds print awareness. Even before you can read, you're suddenly aware that this story has these words attached to it, improves concentration, creates a love for reading, shows preferences in reading choices. So, kind of can give you some ideas if they're always choosing books about animals, they're always choosing books about outer space, those kinds of things. Helps sequencing and processing. We get the idea that we go page to page, that things happen, that the stories evolve, and it improves writing. So, wordless books are great if you have, are non-readers, and you just want them to start thinking about what they're reading about. And that way, those are good for shared reading too. If you have kiddos that just copy the text when they're doing shared reading, you just can use wordless books and tell a story, and then let them comment. So that's an idea. Although we want to also show books with print, of course. Make them age appropriate, read previous predictable chart books, and give time to self select. Okay, it is estimated that the majority of AAC users in mod severe classrooms are reading at a first grade level or below, even some in middle and high school. This is generally due to exposure and instruction and not ability. Emergent literacy skills are beneficial for all students. And so, a famous quote is, no student is too anything to be able to read and write. We can all improve our literacy skills. And this was from David Yoder. So, word work, something we want to do daily as well. So, there are making words lessons also on the PRC Saltillo website. These are free. I try to only post like free resources that everyone can access. Making words with letters is what we want to be doing. That is up to a single syllable short vowel words on that website, but you can go on. I'm going to talk about how you can make making words work for you up to any level. And what we want to do is use a keyboard or any other way to write the letters, point to the letters, select the letters with a switch. Follow a scope and sequence so that we know we're actually doing a nice program, right? We're not just skipping around and randomly spelling things. So UFLI has one. They have a website, and that is all also available to the public. And that one really follows a very conventional, it's built really for K through 2 conventional learners. But you can definitely use it as a scope and sequence, especially when you have a learner who's got most of that understanding of most of the letters most of the time. Alphabet awareness, make an A to Z book. Those are great. Like my favorite things, A to Z. I like, you can predictable chart it and alphabet it. I like alligators. I like baboons. I like cheetahs. Letter of the day. Try to use that letter of the day idea, not letter of the week, because that's going to give you barely getting through the alphabet in your school year. So letter of the day, much better. You just keep circling back, and in that first week you're going to put that letter in lots of different positions as well. But in that first week, if you use the letters that make up the word stamp, then you can play with those letters and make am, as, at, tap, sap. You can make a bunch of words with that word. So if you've taught, think of it like Wheel of Fortune. Teach the letters that will make words that are going to be in most words. So, a lot of people, will look at the book and be like, "So I need to find 2 hours to dedicate to this, and an hour to this, and that guideline is meant for someone who is able to get this implemented in their classroom. So you have a student for 5 hours that you can be using with this. But a lot of people don't have a 5 hour literacy block. So that can be really difficult. So here is my daily mini lesson outline. Or you're a parent, so you're only getting that time after school or before bed. You might only have 45 minutes of attention time that you can focus on this with your child. So here's my mini lesson outline, because it is better to do a little bit of this, of each thing each day, than it is to just become very good at one of them and forget the rest. So here it is. I choose an article from ReadWorks, like The Wood Frog or The Fennec Fox or something, or a page from a novel. You can do readworks.org, create a parent slash educator account, also free. Shared reading. So I put the text into a Word document. And if you don't have a Word document, you can just read this right off of ReadWorks. But if you do, you can open it in Immersive Reader. You can blow up the text. You can color code the text so it matches the Fitzgerald key. So it actually matches the parts of speech on most AAC, which is nouns are orange, verbs are green, adjectives are blue, like that. So let the learner choose the number of times they want to read or be read to. If you are working on comprehension, you would also want to do an anchor activity before this, which may be to talk about what questions are going to be coming up so they can be listening for it. So with the wood frog, wow, what happened to the wood frog's blood? We're talking about it freezing or something like that. So model lots of commenting, following what we talked about earlier with crowd in the car. Then from there, we're going to go to shared writing. Open up a PowerPoint or Google Slides and do your predictable chart writing and just model the next step on the writing continuum. So if they've got the I like frogs model, I like frogs, I like cold, I like slimy things, whatever it is, they've got that down. So now I want to be looking at, well, what about a more complex sentence or even two sentences, right? So two related sentences you might do. Or you might just go for a more complex sentence that has some adjectives and things. So think about answering more of those WH questions. Independent writing. Now open a blank Word document and just give them access to the keyboard. Just, let them go. See what they type. It might just be a bunch of G's, and that's okay. Think about all the things that start with G that you may have talked about in that story. Oh, it was a good article. That's a G word. Maybe you type that out so they can see that word too. Word work. So pick a key word from the article. So maybe we picked the word, let's see, it was called wood frog. And I just mix up the letters in wood frog and they go to town and they see the word. Well, they're going to see go, do, fog, things like that. And then eventually they figure it out. Oh, this is wood frog. And they put it together. And I like to do that because then there's a sort of a game and there's a reward at the end. So some making words programs are just basically to teach a concept and less about the fun of finding the completed word. There are also making words books on Amazon, and you can get those because those will list a bunch if you can't think of those jumbles. So if you can't think of a good keyword from the lesson, then go ahead and, find one in one of those books. And those are by Patricia Cunningham. Independent reading. So make sure there's a basket of books and they're related to the article or not. That doesn't always work out. a basket of favorites, and a swing or a hammock for at least 15 to 20 minutes. So if you have something where there's like a, you know, whether it be a timer or hey, maybe while we're this song, maybe you have a collection of their favorite Beethoven songs. And while the Beethoven is playing, why don't you sit here and read, look through whatever books you want to look through, read whatever books you want to read. So then you have hit on the five major pieces that we are trying to hit each day in a much shorter time. You have the 5 hours, do it that way. If you don't not do it. So, as you're thinking to yourself, I know this is a lot of information, but what might you do right away? You think you could pull off a mini lesson or at least struggle through? I believe I have one on our YouTube page to watch. Um, if not, I'll get more up there and share your literacy journey with your complex communicator. 'Cause I think it's inspiring for all of us to hear how everyone's doing. And here's some of the references that I've spoken about. Um, the book, Karen Erickson and David Copenhaver, Comprehensive Literacy for All, teaching students with significant disabilities to read and write. Jane Farrell's website, comprehensiveliteracy.com. Monarchreader.org. So this is connected to Building Wings, which is where the Readtopia curriculum is. It is not free, but there is a reasonable price for homeschoolers. Um, and there is teachers that you can get packages if you could get a school to do it. It'd be amazing. But Monarch Reader, a big portion of that is free. I think there is a paid component as well. There is, I believe, still the site sharedreader.org where there's some training. This is out of University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, which is where Karen Erickson still is. And then the free resources at the AAC Language Lab, which is through PRC Saltillo, our YouTube channel, which is Access Literacy. And if you go to this bit.ly, so you can screenshot this and type that in, that'll take you to one of those videos, and then the rest are in that playlist. That's my email, Sabrina Lu Ekanayake at gmail.com. And I haven't been as good about updating it, but that is our Instagram handle, Access Literacy with two A's, so AAC, Access Literacy, because I'm so clever. Okay, so I hope this little introduction is helpful and that it will start you on your journey to improve literacy outcomes for everybody. Have a great evening. Bye bye.